In this video, I'm going to show how you can turn your bust dart into gathering and create an empire line across your top. This is shown in a couple of examples here where you can see the lower part of the top has been cut away, the shaping from the bust dart's been put into gathering, and you create a different style using these techniques. I'm going to use the pivot technique to begin with to move this bust dart down into the waist position. So to do that, the dart's going to end up down here, and I'm going to start from the right hand leg of the dart and trace around the block, coming across the waistline. I'm going to mark in where the bust line is, and as I come across the waist here, I'm going to stop when I get to this point here, because I'm going to put all of this shaping here into this section. So once I've got to here, stop at that first right hand leg of the waist dart, put your pencil into the bust point here and close up this top dart. So pivoting the block until the left leg of the dart meets the mark that I started with. And then you'll carry on drawing in, this time from the left hand leg of the waist dart, and then carrying on across the waistline and up around back to the shoulder point. I'm going to just mark where that bust line is that side. And now I can draw in the rest of this, so drawing along the waistline, drawing in the waist dart that I've now created, I'm also going to draw along the line where the bust line was originally on the block, so just taking a 90-degree angle from the centre front line coming across, and then taking a 90-degree angle from my side seam and that point there to where they meet. What I have now is one large waist dart instead of a bust dart and a waist dart. The next step is to draw in the empire line, and this is going to be around 8 to 10 centimetres below the bust line if I was working in full scale. As I'm working in half scale, that's going to be around 4 to 5 centimetres below that line. This will vary depending on the size of the bust that you're working with. So on this example, I'm just going to measure down 4 centimetres from that bust line, so I can use my pattern master to do that, lining up a 4 centimetre line along the bust line and just drawing across the block like so. So that's now my empire line here, which I've just drawn in. I'm going to trace off the two sections which I've ended up with. So this will form the top part of my pattern, and this is going to form the lower part of the pattern. Before I trace off the sections, I'm going to just put in a notch so I know where the two pattern pieces will meet. And I'll put in a notch just here and another one over here, and that will help me to match up my top part here with the lower section of the garment. I'm going to trace off the top part of the pattern. So this is my top pattern piece, and because I've got a slight pointed section here, I'm going to create a curve across there just so it will match a bit better along the shape of the front. Now I've traced off the top section, I can add a centimetre of seam allowance on those sides which require the seam allowance, and also add on some pattern markings. Where I previously had the dart on the pattern, I'm going to ignore this top part of the dart here, and this section's actually going to be gathered. So the fullness that would have been taken in from the dart will be taken in by gathers. So I'll just mark a curved line across here. It will extend slightly further than the legs of the dart so that I can spread that gathering around a little bit further, and I'll just put arrows in across there and mark that up, that's going to be gathered. This is my top pattern piece completed, and now I just need to trace off the bottom section and complete that pattern piece. I'm going to trace off the lower part now, and I'm just using a scrap piece of tracing paper because it's a smaller section. That's the lower part traced off, and I'm actually going to cut this piece out. I've traced off the bottom section and I've cut these pieces away. So this is the left section here and then the right section here. What I don't want to have on my new design is this dart. What I want to do is to close the dart, give a little bit of flare in the lower section, but bring the top points together. So effectively matching this point here with this point over here. I've cut that whole section away, and I just want to bring those two pieces together at the top but leave the gap here. I'm also going to add a bit of flare down this side. Now I've traced off the top section and brought the top points of the dart together, I'm going to extend the length of the pattern piece. So using this line here, matching that across the top here, the centre front line is still straight, and I'm going to extend that so this pattern piece measures 12 centimetres in half scale altogether, measuring down to 12 centimetre mark. And then if I just bring that again, keeping that line there, 90-degree angle, and measuring from that centre point there down to 12 centimetres, and I can just do the same from that top line, measuring to 12. And I'll take a point in the centre as well here. I want to add some flare to the side seam to give a little bit more fullness, and I'm going to add just 1 centimetre to this side seam. And then I can extend from that point down. And then I can draw a nice curve through those points and finish off that line with a straight. I no longer need any of this section here. And this would be my new lower pattern piece, and I can add pattern markings and a centimetre of seam allowance where I require it. Where I've got this pointed section here, I want to make that a nice curve. So I'm just going to round that off a little, and you can accentuate that as you cut it out. These are my final pattern pieces. I've got the top section here where the bust dart has been eliminated and I've now got gathering, and the lower section where I've taken out any of the dart shaping that was there, and I've added flare on the side and also extended the length. When these two pattern pieces come together, this section would be gathered, and I'd be able to gather it and match those notches on the lower section.